What's up, TFL? Coming to you from sunny Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. My name's Reg Comet, and today we're going to take a look at a GM classic, okay? I'm talking about open-air cruising, pop-up headlights, 6-speed manual transmission, and the almighty LS1. I'm talking about the 2000 Pontiac Trans Am. Okay guys, so I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the car here and kind of really what got me into these. I've always been a big fan of the Pontiac Trans Am. When I was a kid, I loved Smokey and the Bandit, and just watching those cars kind of progress throughout the years, to me, this was the cream of the crop right here. This was the epitome of them. I had a 1995 Pontiac Firebird with the V6, and unfortunately it wasn't even the 3.8 liter, it was the 3.4. The 3.8 came a little bit later in the year there, but that was my first real introduction to these, and I was a big fan of the styling. I enjoyed the T-tops. It was a freedom machine for me. Long story short, life went on and I ended up getting rid of the car. I really, as time went on, I really missed the spirit that was this car, right? I missed just the experiences, getting to drive a standard, getting to just have that open air experience. So I started looking for one. It took me 4 years to find this car, and I was able to find this puppy in Alexandria, Minnesota. It had 37,000 miles on it. Original owner. Couple of things about the car. Yes, it's got a Ram Air hood. Yes, it has WS6 badging. It is not a WS6, okay? The previous owner, it is a numbers matching Trans Am. I've actually got the build sheet for the car in the owner's manual. The previous owner, he wanted that WS6 look, so he got the Ram Air hood, he slapped the badging on, but there were a few fundamental differences, okay? The WS6s, beefed up suspension. You had better shocks, you had a bigger sway bars on the car, bigger brakes, and the Ram Air induction system, which took those cars from about 305 horsepower to somewhere in the ballpark of around 320, okay? A little bit later in the production run, when they got the LS6 intake in 2001 and 2002, horsepower jumped up to about 325, okay? Interesting thing though is there's been a lot of kind of back and forth on how much power does this actually make from the factory. Few of the automotive publications in the early 2000s did a shootout between this and the C5 Corvette at the time. And the shocking thing was, both cars, when they came off the dyno, were basically within a margin of error of each other. So for what they were, they ran really well out of the box. Think about in 2000, 300, 305, 320, that was a decent amount of power. But nowadays, we've got, family sedans that are pushing, what, 285, 290, somewhere in that ballpark. So again, we kind of have to view it through that lens, right? But again, just in terms of power, this thing moves. I think it moves pretty well for what it is. Modifications though, the sky's the limit with these things, and we'll talk a little bit about mods later. But again, in terms of what you can do with them, you can run them naturally aspirated and just put bolt-ons to the moon. You can supercharge them, you can turbocharge them, you can throw 150 shot of nitrous on this thing and it'll just smile and keep coming back for more, right? So the LS1, it's a super stout, super reliable motor. Again, when we talk about power, everything's relative to the context that you're familiar with. I've driven, some of the more recent Mustangs. I've driven the 5th and 6th generation Camaros, and is that this? No, this thing's gonna get beat. But with this car, it's the experience. It's visceral. I mean, we've got open air cruising. We got the T-tops down, the sun's shining in. You can hear the car. You're connected to the vehicle, right? There's there's a lot that's going on here that makes this part of an experience, not just a car, in my opinion. Again, one of the things that I absolutely loved and what I always wish my original Firebird had was that crazy spoiler, that Wild Wing they call it. Just taking a quick walk around the car again just gives you a little bit of a better idea of some of the visuals here, some of the aesthetics that make this thing what it actually is. Now I gotta say, for a car that's 21 years old, and especially a car that's got GM paint that's 21 years old, it's held up really well. And again, I just attribute that to how well the previous owners, as well as myself, has managed to take care of this thing. So let's go take a quick look inside here. So first thing you notice is this thing's got doors for days, okay? For a two-door car, the doors are absolutely gigantic on this thing. Again, bit of a blessing and a curse. In terms of the actual interior itself, well, you know what? It's vintage GM 90s interior, right? You got those hard touch plastics in here. It definitely has its fair share of squeaks and rattles and whatnot. I actually pulled the entire interior out of this car and sound deadened everything, and it helped. But the thing is, again, there's so much glass in this thing, right? That even with sound deadening, you still get a lot of that road noise coming through. In terms of the seats, front seats, honestly, can't really complain too much. Super comfortable. Really good lumbar support. I'll show you guys here. They're pretty decent for what they are. I find when I'm in this thing though, I'm low slung. I feel my daily driver, for instance, is a 2016 GMC Sierra. So going from that to this feels like I'm sitting in a monster truck, or going into this feels like my butt's just dragging on the ground rather, okay? Again, you're slung in here, you're really low to the ground. I don't mind it actually. For me, it's a pretty comfortable position, but for anybody who sits in these back seats, I feel sorry for you guys. You don't have a heck of a lot of room back here at all. Okay, and again, guys, for a car that's, 21 years old, it's been in pretty darn good shape, all things considered. You know what, it's pretty clean. Battery, obviously, I had to replace. I put an Optima red top in here, and that's been wonderful so far. Again, it's got an aftermarket induction system on here, so I cleaned and oiled the K&N filter. But other than that, like I said, for a vehicle that is 21 years old, it's been pretty darn good to me here. Okay, so moving around to the back of the car here, we'll just take a quick peek. And I mean, in terms of storage, you guys can kind of see what we're working with here. You don't have a heck of a lot of space. I mean, I got spots for the T-tops here. You got a little bit of a rear deck here where you can actually store some stuff. That back seat actually does fold forward, but yeah, no, like I said, in terms of room, this is what you're working with. I mean, for a car that I'm driving casually, hey, this is great. This is more than I need. But again, if you were going to daily drive one of these things and you had to haul stuff around, you can get some groceries in here. It's functional until you have the T-tops in, and then you lose this whole well back here. So again, it's one of those things you kind of have to balance out a bit. So let's talk about some of the things that I love about this car and some of the things that, maybe we could improve upon a little bit. Number one for me, I love the styling, I love the aesthetics, okay? Again, super polarizing back in the day. You either love this look or you hated it. For me, you obviously know which category I fell into here. I'm a huge fan of the styling. The performance, okay? Again, yeah, it's a stock LS1. And we'll talk about mods in a little bit here, but the performance is there. And again, just dropping the hammer in second gear, I'm happy, It's a super fun ride, it's enjoyable. Let's talk about some of the stuff that maybe I don't like as much. Okay, let's talk about maybe some of the aesthetics of the car. This car, it's got a nose for days, okay? This thing, when you're trying to park it, until you get a feel for it, can be a little bit difficult. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the GM 10-bolt rear end, okay? From the factory, that rear end's held together by hopes and prayers, it feels like. And I've heard stories of guys who, even making stock power, just, driving them, a little more on the spirited side or a little bit rougher, breaking them, no questions asked. As soon as you start adding aftermarket parts and performance, that rear end, you got to put some money and some work into it to actually make it reliable, okay? So those are some of my gripes. When we talk about fit and finish in the car too, I mean, come on guys, it's late 90s GM. You know what I'm talking about. Hard plastic, squeaky panels, rattles, okay? Even though I took the time to sound deaden the entire car, break everything down, take it apart, you know what? You still get the rattles. There's no getting away from it. In terms of modifications, this thing is relatively stock, okay? I haven't really done anything performance-wise to it because, quite frankly, I really haven't had to. Some of the things that I have done though was I installed an MGW shifter, worth every single penny in a car like this. The shifts are tight. There's no way you're missing a 2-3 shift ever in this thing. The shifter's so tight, it's so responsive. I absolutely love it. The next thing that I actually did as well was aftermarket stereo system. So I ended up going with one of the higher end Kenwood multimedia units. This thing has changed the driving experience in this car, okay? I have full wireless Android Auto, wireless Apple CarPlay. I have like full multimedia capabilities on this head unit. I've got a backup camera that I've installed as well. And the best thing, it works with my steering wheel controls. The Bluetooth mic, I was actually able to mount it just in front of the gauge cluster, and it does a really good job. It's done so much to help modernize this car. Again, for me, the end of the day, the reason I love this car so much is this, okay? Being able to go for a drive with the top down, being able to have, you know, enough power to put that smile on my face, and just being able to enjoy those experiences. For me, that's what makes this thing amazing. This thing puts a smile on my face every time. All right, guys, thank you so much for checking out my 2000 Pontiac Trans Am. Again, for all your news, views, and real-world reviews, tune into TFL. Thanks so much. We'll catch you again in the next one.